Hey everyone, it's Ian here, and it is time once again for another edition of Don't Read the Comments. But like we've done before, this is going to be a special edition of Don't Read the Comments dedicated exclusively to feedback that we've received for the RRR roundtable that we did a couple months ago and the interview that I conducted with RRR writer director SS Rajamouli last week. Which, if you haven't watched either of those, well, check them out. The links will be down below in the description. But we're not only going to be doing that. I want to share with you an experience I had at the Music Box Theater in Chicago last week, in which I met SS Rajamouli, and I was able to attend a special screening of RRR in which he conducted a Q&A afterwards, and I got together with some of Earth's mightiest critics. It was a reunion that a number of us hadn't been in the same room together for a few years since the beginning of the pandemic. Zoom is a wonderful thing, but there's not anything that quite can match just hanging out in person, giving hugs, all that good stuff. So I will get to the comments, of course, but I do want to talk a little bit about that Music Box experience. So last Thursday, I talked to SS Rajamouli as part of a virtual roundtable on which Don Shanahan of Every Movie Has a Lesson was also part of that. So yeah, I'm linking to both that interview and also Don's portion down below. So definitely check that out because Mr. Rajamouli talks about his future plans. Also, I know I'm a little bit scatterbrained because it's kind of early in the morning here, but I will link to the full Music Box Q&A, which someone recorded and posted on YouTube, so you can enjoy that. The sound quality is it's okay. It's not professional by any chance. I think someone just recorded on their phone from the first aisle or the first row, but definitely check it out. It was a great time. But so yeah, I bought a ticket, went to the Music Box, which is this old sounds terrible, but it's a great classic movie palace right here in Chicago. It's been around for over 100 years now, and it's a place that I grew up going to. I love seeing movies there, and they have all these kind of special events and kind of boutique programming and visiting filmmakers all the time. It's also the place where the Chicago Film Critics Association holds their annual film festival. So yeah, definitely for many reasons, it's got a special place in my heart. So when I found out that SS Rajamouli was going to be there for one afternoon and a single showing and a single Q&A of RRR, had to get a ticket. So I was there with Don and Mike Crowley and David Fowley, and I'm putting up some pictures of us afterwards in the Music Box Lounge, doing our very best, energized faces, just like Ram and Beam in the film. I know it's cheesy and everything, but we had a lot of fun. So we all got our seats, and the event was sold out. I was ecstatic to be able to see this on the big screen and not just on Netflix on TV, and also to be able to see it in the original Telugu language instead of the Brazilian Portuguese, which I watched for some reason the first time around. It is a completely different experience. The only drawback is that I had an aisle seat, which is ideal because it's a 3-hour movie, and sometimes you got to get up and walk around or go to the bathroom, whatever. But someone really, really tall sat down in front of me, and someone I think tall or let's say portly was sitting in front of him. So he was leaning over to be able to see the full screen, and I was leaning over to see the full screen past him. So fortunately, I had seen the movie before because my experience of seeing it at the Music Box was leaning over at a quite an awkward angle into the aisle to be able to still see only about 2/3 of the screen at any given time. So that was uncomfortable and weird. But what was not uncomfortable or weird was the energy in the Music Box. Again, a sold out crowd. Maybe half the audience had seen RRR before, and the other half, maybe the proportions are wrong, but it felt like it. I had not seen it, so I had no idea what they were in for. The entire place loved it. During the Nacho Nacho dance sequence, that the entire dance sequence, people were clapping along rhythmically. There was feet stomping, there was cheering, there was applause and laughter and outrage during all the right moments. So it was definitely, I think the only other experience I've come close theatrically to experiencing that was a few years ago, also at the Music Box, during the climax of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood by Quentin Tarantino, during the scene the famous bloody, violent climax. I mean, the audience was practically ripping up the seats. They were just we were also wondering how Tarantino was going to handle a very dicey historical situation, and he handled it quite well. We all thought so. That was evidenced by our reaction. But yeah, RRR was definitely, it was a big party, festive celebration of what I consider to be the best film of the year and probably the best film I've seen in a decade. Um, so at the end of it, SS Rajamouli came out and did a Q&A. And normally at the Music Box, visiting filmmakers will do a Q&A. And when I say normally, I'd say, again, it's probably a 50-50 split. Sometimes they have to just leave right away, and sometimes they'll come out and hang out in the Music Box lounge. And I know that after talking with Earth's Mightiest critics, we were all hoping to be in the lounge afterwards to meet him, to shake his hand. Don and I were lucky enough to talk with him a couple days before, but other folks hadn't had the opportunity. So we're very excited. uh, about halfway through the film, I got up to just kind of stretch my legs again. I ran into someone from the Music Box, talking to them for a little bit, and they mentioned that they just found out that SS Rajamouli had to leave immediately after the Q&A to catch a plane. So he was literally going to go off stage, go out the back door to a car that was waiting to whisk him off to the airport. So kind of bummed, and I was more bummed for my friends than I was for myself. But I went back and sat down and pondered that for a bit. But a little bit later on in the film, Mike Crowley, from You'll Probably Agree, who was sitting right next to me, came in from, he had wandered off somewhere, and he had mentioned that he had just met SS Rajamouli in the lobby. And we knew that he was watching the film from a kind of a private balcony spot, and enjoying the audience reactions and all that stuff. But I guess he was just kind of much like many of us, getting up to stretch his legs. I'm sure he's seen the movie a dozen times or more, probably 100 times. But so I waited for a few minutes, and then I wandered out in the lobby because I figured, well, if he's out there and he's meeting people, I don't want to make a big deal of it. But when am I ever going to get the chance to meet the man, like formally in person? So I wandered out there, and of course he was gone. So the same person I talked to at the Music Box beforehand had mentioned that he had talked to some people and taken some photos, but then he went out for a stroll in the cold Chicago winter. So I went outside, and I looked left and right down Southport Street, and no sign of him. So I was like, well, I'm outside anyway. I've been sitting way too long. I'm going to go for a stroll. Start walking down the street, and guess who I run into on his way back to the Music Box Theater? But SS Rajamouli himself. Struck up a conversation. He remembered me from our interview from a couple of days before. You couldn't ask for a nicer, more gracious, humble, just down to earth guy. And I know people say that about filmmakers, but it's rare that I meet filmmakers where that actually seems to be the case. Like, just a regular working class Joe. I don't know if that's actually his background, but he was so approachable that it was just amazing. And as you'll see, we got a picture together outside the Music Box, which was a big thrill. Walked him all the way back to the theater, and held the door and all that good stuff, and said our goodbyes. And then after that, the movie finished, and he came out to do the Q&A. And I will play just a minute or so of the Q&A, because I want you to experience the raucous, thunderous appreciation for this artist coming to talk to us about this masterwork that he created. Um, RRR is an Indian film, and as he mentioned during the Q&A, it was a big hit overseas, but then gradually it started leaking its way out to other parts of the world. And he honestly thanked film critics for helping to get the word out and expand the reach of the movie. And he said it's inspiring just to see how much of a chord it's striking with international audiences. You might think of it as a very culturally, it's a historical crazy, epic action adventure, almost comic book movie with very specific references. But the themes and the entertainment value, it turns out, are very universal. So yeah, it was just a great experience. So yeah, if you if he comes back around and he's anywhere near your town showing RRR, or if any theater is just showing RRR, which hopefully they will be because we've got award season coming up, and I'm pushing for this thing to get all the awards. Not that I have say in very much, but yeah, definitely do yourself a favor, check it out on the big screen, even if you've seen it on Netflix. There is something about going to a movie theater and not only watching it with an audience, but experiencing it, because everybody gets super into this. For example, when Ram and Beam make their respective entrances on screen, the place just went nuts because we all knew what was coming. We all know how awesome these guys are. So yeah. Um, I do want to say before we get to the comments, I promise we'll get to the comments in a second, that as those of you who have been following the channel know, watching RRR and the response to it, and also the reaction from myself and Earth's Mightiest critics, inspired me to launch a monthly series looking at Indian films. So September was RRR, October was Tumbad because it was a horror film, and for this month, for November, we're going to be talking about Sardar Udam, which was overwhelmingly recommended and requested by folks just like you watching this video. So thank you for that. We're going to be doing a live stream, which is going to be coming up on Wednesday, November 23rd at 8 p.m. Central Time. As you can see right there, there's the live stream waiting to happen. Apparently, there's one person waiting. I hope you've brought food and blankets and stuff, because that's still a few days out. But yeah, you can join Earth's Mightiest critics talking about this film, which again was overwhelmingly requested by viewers. As usual at the roundtables, we'll be taking your questions and comments in the chat. There'll be a link to the live stream, YouTube live stream page down below, and yeah, we hope to see you there. So without further ado, let's get to those comments. First up, AGNYC says, RRR. I agree. AP Politics says, story indirectly told on bridge scene alone, where Ram carries flag for nation and Beam carries the kid, and they exchange the ideas and joins together. Agreed. I love the symbolism in this movie, mixed seamlessly in with the action. Here's a great example of how effective this movie is. I showed it to my 12-year-old son. Actually, I just showed him the bridge scene on Netflix. And this is a kid who hates movies, which gets very awkward when you have a film critic dad. At the end of this 8-minute scene or whatever it was, I turned to him. I said, "What did you think?" He said, "Not bad," which is definitely high praise coming from him. So yes, agreed. AP Politics, really well done scene with heart, a message, and some pretty breathtaking action. From G, RRR was an Indian film. Then its box office collection was 160 million. Imagine if it was a Hollywood in English film, then it was seen all over the world. Then how much would be its box office collection? Imagine SS Rajamouli with the budget of Marvel films. That guy will create the greatest movies ever. Well, I agree. I think with a lot of extra money, he probably could do some pretty amazing things. But he's already doing amazing things with about a quarter of the budget of those Hollywood blockbusters, which I asked him about during our Q&A. So you can go check that out. But yeah, it's great because, as you can tell from the story I just told, um, RRR is making its way all across the world. It's not just limited to India, and it's getting fans of all nations, races, creeds. It's become an international phenomenon, and its success is only continuing to grow. And I'm ecstatic about that. Manjunath writes, early on in an interview when starting RRR, Rajamouli shared his inspiration and vision for this movie. Definitely a fictional story built on two main characters, Ram, Alluri Sita Rama Raju, and Beam, Kamaram Beam, were freedom fighters against the British around 1920. They were born around the same timelines in 1890 to 1895. During his research of these freedom fighters, reading books, news, there was a 4-year timeline missing, undocumented about their life. Basically, both freedom fighters left their hometown, learned outside life, came back noticing the atrocities, and started revolting. The inspiration was to use this 4-year gap out of town and club these two main characters to narrate a freedom struggle story with two leads, friends, brothers with own missions. Secondly, most of the Indian movies do not fall into any particular genre, more multi genre, locally known as commercial movies, to have comedy, songs, action, fights, sentiment to cater to different audiences. Definitely appreciate the interest you showed in making this review. Well, I appreciate that backstory. I think I had heard some of that about the historical inspiration, but not put so elaborately there. Plus, SS Rajamouli talked about another facet of his inspiration for not so much how he told the story, but why, which is also in the interview. So, yeah, check that out. And thank you for your comment. Shikar says, "Warning: Do not watch Brahmastra. Do yourself a favor, please." I'm starting to get the feeling that people don't like Brahmastra, although it's spelled here Brastra. I think there might be a typo there, but yeah, we're going to see some similar opinions of that film coming up later on. Hail Hydra says underrated channel. Well, thank you, Hail Hydra. Hydra gets a bad name, but I think I'm a fan. JD Santabanez says there are a lot of Indian movies in Netflix. Yes, there are. Also, there's a bunch on Amazon Prime. We're going to be talking about one of those next week with Sardar Udam. And there's also a large number of Indian films playing in American cinemas. I went to look up Steven Spielberg's The Fablemans, which is coming out soon, and I noticed that a lot of the local like chain theaters, the AMC's and the like, that there are a number of Indian films playing on the big screen. So the holiday season's coming up, so things are going to be a little bit crazier than normal. But I think next year, one of my resolutions is going to be trying to get out to the cinema to see some of these on the big screen and not just in kind of boutique settings like I saw RRR. So very exciting stuff for 2023. Aditya Varma says, "Now we and you are realizing SS Rajamouli, so you should see all his movies. You would be surprised as on today because he has always surprised Telugu and Indian audiences time and again." Well, looking up his filmography, I can say that there he does, from what little I've seen, he does have a quite a resume of interesting films. There's one where someone turns into a fly, which I think is actually coming up. Someone mentioned that in the comments coming up here. So yeah, he's I'm a fan based on this one movie. He's got a fan for life based on just solely RRR. But yeah, definitely have to go and fill in some of those gaps. Aditya also says SSR father is a great storyteller. Yes, he is, as evidenced by what I saw at the music box with half the crowd having not seen the movie and being completely swept up in every moment and enjoying. Was talking to someone about this the other day. I don't know anyone who has seen RRR and thought it was a bad film, which is quite a testament because you can find someone with a negative opinion of just about any movie. Um, Most of the reactions I've seen have been, great to really good, which in some circles translates to great. So yeah, definitely agree. Manchu Kanda says, well, doesn't say anything, but just gives three thumbs up, which is awesome. Amol Singh says, Indian best historical epic and true story of the years. If you like RRR, check out Sardar Udam, Kasari, Bajiro Mistani, Panvat, Uri, and Panyan Selvan Part 1. And again, I apologize if I'm butchering all of these names. Yes, Sardar Udam is coming up very soon on this channel. In fact, next Wednesday, we're going to be doing a live stream with Earth's Mightiest Critics talking about that very film. So please join us and check it out. Bro says, "Don't watch Brahmastra. It's disappointing, boring." Note taken. Now, I just want to let you folks know, the more you recommend that I don't watch a film, the closer I get to actually wanting to check it out and see what the fuss is about. So I might just have to do a not a hate watch, but a let's see what this is all about watch with the EMC maybe sometime next year. So yeah, Brahmastra is the top of that list. Dr. XYZ says, people don't understand Indian storytelling and its entanglement with music and song. If you see our epics, they're essentially written in rhyming couplets, quadruplets. Think about it as the greatest rap song ever written. That goes for the 6 to 8 volumes of 1,000 pages each. When my grandmother used to tell me bed stories, they were grand, and while telling about what the king said to the pauper, she would sing a very simple folk song which would progress the story. Forget Bollywood. In marriages, they are essentially folk songs which are sung by women of the house, and they aren't about some abstract. They are literally calling you by name in their songs and describing you. like a bad writing like a bard, sorry, writing, singing, and documenting the happenings. When the monsoons came in just 2 decades back in the villages, women would get around and just sing about the clouds, the chariots of clouds bringing rain on the parched land. And there is no invitation. My grandmother would sit at our porch and start singing. Neighbors would hear it and join in. Passersby would stop and join in. And routine for the next 2 weeks was set. We came to know that there was a marriage in that house because every evening we would start hearing songs sung by women of that house. When people think India, they think third world poverty, but that's only in cities. Go to villages. Most of them are self sufficient. They aren't like deprived of anything, eat better quality food, and enjoy life better than most. The community is well stitched. But all that is rapidly vanishing as India becomes more and more urbanized. Children have left their villages and moved to cities. My village in early 2000s had no male or female above 15 years old or younger than 60 years. It was full of young children and retired people. Everybody else was gone to cities. That's fascinating. I don't quite know how to respond to this comment because it's essentially filling in some cultural knowledge that I frankly did not have, and it's again, it's I appreciate that. Um, One of the things I think has been the most revelatory about covering RRR and now other Indian films is getting some of that historical cultural context from a world that I frankly don't know that much about. I'm a Midwest American kid. Well, I'm a middle-aged man now, but I grew up a Midwest American kid with not a lot of exposure to the wider world. So I definitely appreciate this education. So thank you very much. Sumik Paul said, Hiss is a very bad choice to start with Indian cinema. There's a lot more, and by a lot, I mean a lot. Best from 2022 and 2021. Again, I'm sorry. I'm going to get through these, but this is not my native tongue. I'm going to do the best I can. Gangubal Katwadi, a lot bought from RRR. Kantara, must watch in Kannada language. Kashmir Files, Hindi. Jai Bhim, Tamil. Panyan Selvan, Tamil. One, Tamil. Janagana Mana, I like that. Malayalam. Minai Murali, if I can read that. Malayalam, Badai Do, Hindi, and Brahmastra, Hindi. Wow, someone recommending Brahmastra, although it is at the very end of the list. I will say the hiss thing came up because I think at the end of the RRR discussion, I was talking with Earth's Mightiest critics about watching some other Indian films, and Mark, the movie man Krawczyk, who's a dear friend of mine, recommended Hiss because I think he had seen it or was familiar with it as an Indian film and a horror film, which is sort of his forte is horror movies. So we were kind of discussing it. We ended up talking about Tumbad for October for Halloween. Mark and I talked about it together. We both really enjoyed it. But Hiss, yes, I don't know anything about Hiss, but I do know that Mark, for his channel, Special Mark Productions, The Spoiler Room, which you can find on YouTube and iTunes and pretty much everywhere else, he did a month-long series on snake horror films. And the last one of the month is coming up on Tuesday. We're going to be doing that live right before our Siddhar Undam stream on Wednesday. So Tuesday night at 9:30 p.m. Central, you can hear Mark and I talk about Hiss. So we'll see how good or very bad a choice that is. So thank you, Sumik. Ranveer Vegla says, you have got a subscriber for your review of RRR 2022. Well, thank you. Glad to have you aboard. Love your review. Thank you. I love that you're a subscriber, and I hope to not disappoint you. Aman writes in with something I can't read on YouTube, literally because it's just pictures. But you got a couple of hearts. You got some of those like celebratory party poppers and 2 thumbs up, which I will gladly accept. So thank you. Dhruv Prathak says, Karma hit the British lady so hard she made Ram use spiked whip on beam, and she got twisted and wrecked by spiked fence wire. Very satisfying if you think in this way. Well, spoiler alert, Dhruv. No. There is... I think that's a vague enough comment that if you haven't seen RRR, by the time you get to that moment, you'll probably have forgotten this comment because so much other stuff happens. But indeed, it is a beautiful piece of karmic justice that the I can't even remember her name, but she's like the administrator's wife, and she's quite sadistic, and she gets her comeuppance. So yeah, good to see that. RG says SSR is very genuine to his feelings, and that is what he is able to reflect in his craft very successfully. Thanks for sharing this interview with RRR fans. Well, I'm happy to share this interview with RRR fans. I was happier to conduct it. It was a great privilege to talk to SS Rajamouli, and one of the things that struck me about talking to him and also seeing him at the Music Box is he truly comes off as a humble artist. There's no sense of pretense. Just comes off as someone that you'd meet, in the street or just out in the world and be able to strike up a conversation with. And also, you'll be happy to know this, as are our fans, I'm sure. He's so grateful for the outpouring of love and respect and affection for this film, not only from Indian audiences for which he created the movie, but also the worldwide acclaim. So, yeah, thank you, I guess, on his behalf, if I can even do that. So, RRR, the most entertaining flick from Earth, gobsmacking theater I ever had. I see what you did there, Shyam. But yeah, I agree. It's one of the coolest theatrical experiences I've experienced in, well, probably ever. But yeah, this is my number one film of the year, as I've said many times before, and there's nothing that even comes close, and I doubt will. We got a full bona fide thread here of people talking back and forth in the comments, kicked off by Venugopal. Wow, your last question was an eye opener to us in Telugu states. Rajamouli's thought process seems to make a lot of sense. Um, so Nalam writes A. Furquan writes, that was such great thought, and I think he revealed it first time here. What he was trying to do was to unite people of Andhra and Telangana. He actually mentioned that somewhere before, I believe. And then replying to Furkan, he said it same last week on Deadline interview. And then hack even I too. Oh, say responding to Furkan Ilhak, even I too. So yeah, essentially, and this happens sometimes in interviews. People, the subjects will be asked the same question or similar questions. So yes, there will be answers that you might see in other outlets. But I was happy to get the answer I did from him and the time I got from him. And yeah, that's all I'll say, because it was a fun interview, which again you may see in other places, but not quite the same way you'll see here. Because did that other interview have old TVs and Funko Pops in the background? Never mind. Mr. Prime says RRR totally deserves an Oscar, and Santhianand. Oh, I am so sorry. Says true. I agree. I think RR totally does deserve the Oscar. I know there were some shenanigans with the nominating process or the eligibility from a few months ago, but hopefully soon that will be rectified, because I think this thing should sweep in all categories. Again, nothing even comes close. Avish Kumar on the interview I did with SS Rajamouli says, awesome. Yes, it was. Thank you. And then Jugad. So I'm not going to read that full name. You can see it for yourself on the screen if you're watching the video. I'll just say the last name Abdul, says Jugad. Now, I had to look this up because I think SS Rajamouli mentioned this in the interview, talking about the method by which he kind of is able to get his films made. But the one word answer here, Jugad, I re-looked it up, and it is a translation, roughly translates to hack, which in English, I don't know if it's the same in other languages, but hack has a couple of connotations. One is to sort of hack things together in order to get something done, in under severe constraints, which is what Mr. Rajamouli was referring to in that interview. Hack also means someone who is sort of a fraud, not very good at their job. But I assume this was meant in the former sense and not the latter. Ganesh, again, replies with some. Well, Ganesh, you didn't reply earlier, but you did include a flame, a water wave, and RR in the middle, which is the best use, I think, of these emojis I've ever seen. Because, as you know, if you've seen the film, and obviously you have, RR has some fire and water themes, with the revolution, the rising, and the revolt placed squarely in the middle. So, spot on. E. Rahul says the last reply from Rajamouli with tears just streaming out of the face, and I can totally see that. Nirmala replies, even I cried while he was telling the separation part of Telugu state, and this is my second time I cried when he again said the story. Whatever happened, so happened, but just be just Telugu people, firstly and lastly. Na Bangram Telugu Tali. And then Rar Cantor writes, Avunu, bro. I'm sure I'm missing a lot of that context, but yeah, someone, if you want to write into the comments and clarify some of that for me, tell me what I'm missing, feel free to do so. But I think it's a beautiful sentiment. At least that's my interpretation of it. Hey, Malia writes in again with RRR, flames and water. So yeah, again, I love the symbolism. Blizzard says, "Wow, I thought you were a regular YouTuber," with some crying and laughing emojis. Well, I am a regular YouTuber. I think I just got an extraordinary opportunity to talk with the writer director of my favorite film of the year, which does not happen often, but when it does, I pounce on it, and I'm happy to share it with you. So thank you. Manunatha writes in 15 Oscar winner. Yes, hopefully this wins 15 Oscars if that's what you're suggesting. I don't even know if there's 15 categories, but yes, I predict, I hope for a clean sweep. Dark Prince 2 says, we Indians like to make fun of the term jugad, but it's actually related to the term yoga. This movie is certainly the yoga of Rajamouli. Fascinating. VMC Talks RRR, three flames, but no waves. Little disappointed. No, I'm just kidding. So, yes, this movie was in fact fire. New Makund Ladies Taylor writes in, well edit, bro. Thumbs up and sweating laughing. I don't know what that I never quite understood that emoji, but I'll take it as a compliment. So, yes, thank you. I assume you're commenting my editing skills on piecing those three questions together somewhat seamlessly. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun. Xavier Pubga says Ega the Fly, one of the best movies, same director. This is the one that I was talking about earlier, where I'd heard that someone transformed into a fly. So yeah, definitely gotta check that out. Saita K says, Lal Campia, what a joke. This is referring to, I think I'd mentioned on the live stream that John Campia, another YouTuber, a much famous one and not a regular YouTuber by any stretch, was complaining when he tried to watch RR about all the pre-film title cards that came up. And he was just so bored and frustrated. And I've seen this movie twice now, once in a theater with a raucous crowd, and I swear the titles went by much quicker the second time around, but still, you're talking about possibly a minute. It's not that bad, John. Samantha Masters says, the local politics is what it is. Most Westerners interpret it in the global context. Now, this, I believe, is in reference to that famous final question that I asked SS Rajamouli about the inspiration for RRR, and he was talking about how he was kind of dismayed at some of the political strife in his hometown or his home region. Um, and I had kind of expanded that to the U.S. election that we had just had the midterms here in the states, which had I think happened just that same week last week, and how America is very divided. And that answer resonated with me, as did the film. But I think that, as they say here, all politics is local. So SS Rajamouli was talking about divided people in his own context. That is a situation that faces people all over the world. So it may be a local political issue, but the themes of the art that he created and the inspiration for that art, I think, can be felt by just about anybody, anywhere, possibly at any time, because I don't think there's been a point where humanity has quite been ever completely unified. So, yeah. I'm Tapan Kumar, and I'm Ian Simmons. RR, it's not just a movie, my Indian brother. It's about to relive and show our Indian culture at international level. We should thank our evergreen director, SS Rajamouli, three praise hands, and then Jai Shri Ram. Yes, I agree. I think this is it's not just an entertaining film, but it's also an important one for no other reason than I think it's giving some more international acclaim to audiences who might not have known about it or known about all the riches of Indian cinema, which we are exploring here on Kicking the Seat, thanks to this movie. So yeah, it's wonderful. Nani says, very good questions. Wow. Well, thank you. I try. Dinesh Bani says, I want to learn work from you always with a flame. I assume, Dinesh, you mean from SS Rajamouli, and not necessarily from me, because I don't know what you can learn from me except how to read comments on the internet and possibly talk to to filmmakers. But I'll take it as you leave it. So thank you. Dinesh Bani also says, You guys missed some super emotions from Rajamouli in past movies. He's the only director in Indian cinema who never faced bad talk on films. Well, I can see why based on the strength of this. And as I mentioned earlier, I've got to go back and fix a lot of those blind spots because, yeah. Actually, I do have a negative comment coming up that I just recalled. For some reason, I can't find it. I think it might have been removed by YouTube because it didn't come up in my sweep of comments. But yeah, we'll get to that in a couple minutes. Karan Babu says, "Amazing," referring to the interview I did with Mr. Rajamouli. And yes, it was amazing. I'm glad you enjoyed it. R. Kantar says, I'm from Telangana, Hyderabad. A cruel politician divided us, but our beloved Tollywood connects our two Telugu states. I'm so proud of my Telugu cinema. It single handedly lifted India's image. Yeah, very, you know, yeah, again, I can't speak to the local context that you're referring to, but I can feel the enthusiasm and the passion in your words. So I'm glad that that has happened for you, and I'm glad SS Rajamouli has been part of that, and RRR again drawing more attention to people that could use some attention. It sounds like. Bhavik says, I dare you to watch Kashmir Files, the Indian version, not the one edited without cut and gruesome scenes. Also, a good chance to see the ground realities of the systemic oppression of a majority in India and their plight that is always ignored by Western media. I double dare you. MF. Okay. Calm down, Bavik. I'm not averse to watching anything except possibly actual snuff films. But so yeah, I will put Kashmir Files. Actually, Kashmir Files has been recommended by others, and it is on the big master spreadsheet of movies that I need to watch with Earth's Mightiest Critics coming up. So I'll see if I can find the India version, whatever that means. I'll do some research to make sure that we're watching nothing but the best, the truest version of that film, and look out for that in the future. So thank you. And MF, come on, come on. And another impassioned comment against watching Brahmastra. Please don't watch Brahmastra. It's the pinnacle of failure in Indian cinema. Watch Kartiki 2 instead. That's what Brahmastra wanted to be, but failed miserably. You know what? I'm going to do a double feature of the film that you just recommended with Brahmastra. How about that, MF? I'm just kidding. I love you. And that brings me to the last comment, which I mentioned I don't have a screen cap for. I believe it might have gotten taken down by YouTube because of what was actually written in it. And I should have snagged it right when it happened, but I didn't think to do so because I'm incredibly busy. But yeah, someone, and it was either on the SS Rajamouli interview video or was on the RRR roundtable I did with Earth's Mightiest Critics. Someone wrote, I remember it because it was seared into my brain, the simplicity and the vileness of it. They said, nah, RRR is a gay film. I don't know what that means. I don't know if the poster was trying to say that it is a movie about gay people, in which case that's demonstrably untrue. Because look where Ram and Beam end up at the end of the movie. Spoiler. Um, i- it's a bromance for sure, and it's one of the coolest, most macho, I think, examples of what a loving bond between two men that is still heterosexual can look like. And if you're talking about it's a gay film in the kind of the 1980s American slang style of it, like, oh, that's so gay. Uh, I assume you have not actually watched RRR. Everyone's got their own opinions, but this is the first time that I've heard of someone kind of trashing the film. So everyone's got their own taste, and that's cool. But there's no need to call it a gay film. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching all of that, listening to my responses to that deluge of comments. If you'd like to see your comments reacted to, read, quote unquote, live on air, all you have to do is leave a comment here on the Kicking the Seat YouTube channel or kickseat.com, where we host the podcast, or the Kicking the Seat Meta fan page. pretty much anywhere you can get in contact with us, except for Twitter, because that would just be insane. Yeah, promises. I promise to react, to respond, to give my full thoughts on what you say, and to consider it carefully and sometimes snarkily. But yeah, so thank you again for tuning in for this RRR Part Two special edition of Don't Read the Comments. I mean, the live streams and the interviews and the other segments we do about RRR and other Indian films continue to get a lot of great feedback and engagement, and we do certainly appreciate that. As you can see from the comments that you've left on this episode, it's as much as an education for me as just people saying, "Hey, like the video or love that movie." I really appreciate the insights that you share with me, and so do Earth's Mightiest critics, speaking on their behalf. So yes, and we'll be back at some point with a regular edition of Don't Read the Comments, because we've got a lot of other feedback from other videos we got to share. So until next time, whenever that is, whatever that is, thanks very much for watching the Kicking This YouTube channel, listening to the podcast. Please like the content if you like the content, subscribe if you want to subscribe, and yeah, we'll catch you later.